My name is David Madison. This is the 10th of August, 2019. I was a Methodist minister for 9 years, but by the time I had finished my PhD in biblical studies, my faith in God had evaporated. I am an ex-clergy atheist. That wasn't supposed to happen. Seminaries exist to manufacture clergy, but if you look at the Bible too critically, too closely, things begin to fall apart. The errors and flaws become all too obvious. Hence the title of this series of flash podcasts, Bible Blunders and Bad Theology, and I'll have a lot to say about them in this series. This is episode 3. In the 27th chapter of Matthew, verses 52-53, at the precise moment Jesus died, this is what happened. The earth shook and the rocks were split, the tombs were open, and many of the bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. So, you got that? There were a lot of newly alive dead people when Jesus resurrected. I want to make a few quick points about this. First, how can this not diminish the supposed splendor of Easter morning? This is a Halloween scene. Christians who are not into zombie movies will dismiss this as a tall tale, a fabrication. It's preposterous that a lot of newly alive dead people went walking around Jerusalem, right? But if this story is a tall tale, a fabrication, how come the resurrection of Jesus himself isn't a tall tale, a fabrication? What's the difference? The idea of gods or humans resurrecting was a common superstition in the ancient world. These verses pretty well cancel the credibility of the resurrection of Jesus. Second, Matthew missed his calling by about 2,000 years. He should be writing headlines for supermarket tabloids. Can't you imagine his headline? Hundreds of newly alive dead people spotted on a walking tour of Jerusalem. It doesn't speak well for his credibility that he was immersed in magical thinking and superstition, and that he let his imagination run away with him. Third point, notice the last words of verse 53, and they appeared to many. Funny, none of the other gospel writers report this. You would have thought that the walking dead in Jerusalem, seen by many, would have caused quite a sensation. You know, riots, hysteria, like in zombie movies. And would have ended up in the secular histories of the period. But no, nada, zero, nothing. Matthew made up a lot of stories in his gospel, including this. Fourth, they appeared to many, would seem to mean the public at large. The whole resurrection of Jesus business would have had much more impact if Jesus had been more strategic about his appearances. Why not show up at the temple? Lots of people there. Why not knock on Pilate's door on Sunday morning and say, "Hi, it's me, I'm back"? Why not appear to Caesar himself? That would have made the news. But the resurrection of Jesus wasn't news except to his small circle of followers. Again, we suspect a tall tale. Fifth and finally, what happened to the newly alive dead people who toured Jerusalem? Did they just head back to their tombs to resume being dead? And that's a fair question about the newly alive Jesus as well. We know that his ascension into heaven is fantasy. I discussed that in episode 2. His body didn't leave planet Earth, so he too died again. The resurrection story of Jesus falls apart totally. Matthew 27 verses 52-53 is a serious Bible blunder. It's common for religions to promise eternal life. All the spookiness about the resurrection is a cheap gimmick. Easter itself is bad theology, but mixing it up with Halloween is really bad theology.